think that, some of the best weeks on tour are when you get a star and, a no-name guy, so to speak, comes up and contends with them, and you kind of get that, underdog story, and everybody can relate to that. I probably play the most of anybody on the PGA Tour every year. So when you start talking shorter schedule, I get nervous. I think, to me, the beauty of the tour is if a guy wants to, play 5 or 6 weeks in a row, he can do it. And if somebody else wants to take those same 5 or 6 weeks off and go on vacation or do whatever, they have every right to do so. I mean, I love the flexibility of the PGA Tour. I mean, I think that's one of the main draws, that kept guys with the tour versus going over to LIV. I'm probably the player that's benefited absolutely the most from LIV coming along. I played well in 2022, right before LIV got going, which brought an offer from LIV, so I went down that road for a little bit. But sticking with the PGA Tour and the changes they made, I've played in every signature event since they were established, and I would say nobody's benefited more financially than I have because I've played well in some of those events and been in all of them. So it's been fantastic for me, so I shouldn't be the guy here, complaining.
Hey, everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo here. Glad you're with us. If you like what you've seen so far, make sure you click that like and subscribe button wherever you get the podcast, especially on YouTube, and make sure you check out our second channel, Trey Wingo Golf, where we'll have a bunch of really exciting things coming up in the next couple of weeks, including all of our long-form conversations about players in the game of golf and what's going on there. So there's Trey Wingo, Straight Facts Homie podcast, and also the Trey Wingo Golf channel on YouTube. Make sure you click like and subscribe on both of those. Our guest for this episode is a guy that's really an interesting sort of plot twist, for lack of a better term, in the way things are going on the PGA Tour. He's not a superstar and he's not a young gun. He's a guy that's in the middle and is sort of trying to ride this thing out as long as he can. It's Tom Hoge. Tom, of course, played his college golf at TCU, had his breakthrough win on the PGA Tour a couple of years ago, outlasting Jordan Spieth at Pebble Beach. And now he's one of those guys that's trying to figure out what's going to happen in the game of golf with the radical changes that are being proposed. And what does that do for someone who, again, who isn't in the top 15 in the world, but isn't, trying to find a way on to keep his tour card, but just play as much golf as he can and play on the PGA Tour as long as he can. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Tom Hoge. Okay, so Tom, I try to live my life by 2 principles. Number 1, know who you are, and number 2, know who you're not. And I have a feeling that you're kind of that same way, because when everyone says the name to me, Tom Hoge, the first thing that comes to mind to me is 21C.
Well, first of all, I'd say you're even shocked, know who I am to think of anything, but
oh, come on.
Yeah, I certainly live by that, and we just had our first child who's 1. We've even moved back further in the plane now. We find that some of those last rows in the plane can be empty. That's a good spot for the kid to hang out and have a little space to roam during the flights.
Yeah. For those that don't understand the reference, let me explain. It was 2023, and you had just finished up a third-place finish at the Players' Championship. And, that came with a pretty hefty check. And I think it was Doug Ferguson, the AP sports writer, that spotted you, the golfer that spotted you on the plane and said, here's proof that Tom Hoge is who Tom Hoge is. He just finished third place at the Players' Championship and did very well for himself, and he's flying back on American Air in coach. And you retweeted it with the phrase 21C because that was your seat.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Got to know who you are, right?
Exactly. So, and I think that's sort of been your approach to your entire game, right?
Yeah, I would say that, it's crazy. I'm finishing my 11th year on tour here, getting ready to start number 12. But when I back up to the start of it, the first few years on tour, I finished outside of the top 125 to keep status. Wasn't sure how long I could make this deal last for. And my focus then was, to have a little bit of money saved. So whatever's next in life, I'm not choosing based off of money for what career I want to get into. And somehow I've hung on for dear life here and ready to start year 12 out here.
Well, it's funny because that was Joel Damon's line. Like at some point, he said, somebody has to be, the 77th best player in the world. It might as well be me, And I feel like that's sort of your philosophy as well.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about that 2023 Players Championship all the time because I had my bags packed twice to go to the airport thinking I was missing the cut. I shot 78 in the first round, had my stuff packed, ready to fly home Friday afternoon, went out that morning, shot 4 under, got in the cut line. Still looked like I wasn't going to make it, but I ended up making the cut. I shot 62 in round three, ended up finishing third. And looking back, if one guy had made another birdie out there, knocked me out of the cut line, that's how small the margins are in professional golf. I mean, and you see it that you catch a good little run. I've moved up. I think I've got to 22nd or third in the world rankings at one point. But I always tell everybody the top 15 or 20 guys, wherever that might be, clearly have separated themselves from everybody else, and then the margins are so small that we're all just fighting to kind of fall in that next line and see how good we can get. But there's not a lot of difference out there between 25 in the world and 200, 300th in the world. It's a grind.
Well, it is. I mean, do you watch the Q School
Oh yeah.
experience at all? I mean, like Spencer Levin, right? This is a guy that was low amateur at the U.S. Open at
Yep.
Shinnecock in 2004 and was grinding out there, trying to get back on tour and make his card. And he, after a great third round or Saturday, he just couldn't put it together in the next round. I mean, I don't think casual golf fans really understand or comprehend just how thin the margin is from what you just said, from being top 15 in the world or top 15 on the money list and guaranteed to do this for as long as they want to. And then all these other guys that make up the tour are just trying to find a way to just keep it going. And
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is the essence of most of the PGA Tour.
100%. And it seems like every year, the young guys come out and are hitting it farther, and guys just keep getting better. And I feel like I've worked as hard as I have at any point in my career. I feel like I should keep trying to keep progressing, and everybody else seems to be doing the same things, just keeps getting harder. But going back to Q School, I think that certainly for anybody that's played in Q School appreciates the pressure that's out there on it. We all tune in and follow it and hope you're never back there in that position, because it's brutal to be out there, living it where you're literally your whole next year, trying to provide for your family depends on that round of golf, that hole, whatever it might come down to. And, it was a sad period. I think we go 10 years where there was no Q School to get on the PGA Tour. They've had 25 cards. They got rid of it completely. It's back to 5. I still think that could be some of the most compelling TV product that there is if the story's told right. Just for what's at stake for guys. And now they're even having a playoff for that 5th spot. I couldn't imagine having a playoff to go get your PGA Tour card, and think of all the opportunities that come with the PGA Tour card versus being on the Corn Ferry for the next year and having to try to fight your way back to the tour. So it's wild.
Yeah, I've had a bunch of players tell me the most pressure, and these are guys that competed and won in majors. The most pressure they ever felt was trying to get through Q School. What makes it so difficult?
Yeah, I mean, really, your whole next year's job's in the line. So, it'll be no different than other industries, where you're going into pitch your business or what it might be, and everything depends on that meeting. And I think everybody can appreciate that. And for me, I go back to 2011. I was first out of college. I started first stage. I was square right on that number. And was as nervous as I've ever been that morning. Couldn't eat, everything that goes with it. And then I made it through. I shot like 4 under that day, made it through. And then second stage, I would say, is the most pressure, because if you make it through second stage, the final stage of Q School, especially at that time, you knew you had status at least for the Corn Ferry for the next year. So you had a decent spot to play and try to make it to the tour. So second stage for me, and the same deal, I was starting that last day right on the number, knew I had to go out and play well and everything depended on it, and luckily pulled it off there. But I think that's, I haven't talked about this a lot lately, but it's fun to look back. Everybody's got their Q School stories and what they went through. And yeah, that's certainly the most pressure I've ever felt playing golf.
So what did it mean to you when you made it through and you realized, holy crap, the thing that I've been kind of wanting to do my entire life? I mean, you went to TCU to play golf. When you realize I got there, Like that, I think we all have that aha moment. Like for me, I remember when I went up to audition for ESPN, I was nervous as hell,
Yeah.
and I didn't know, and I had to wait 2 weeks to find out whether or not they were going to make me an offer. But when I did, I was like, oh, what was that aha moment like when you got that sort of validation more than anything else?
Yeah, so I would say, first of all, 2011, I was right out of college. I really had no idea what all this meant in the grand scheme of
None of us
things.
do.
And
None of us do. We all think we
at,
do, and none of us do.
at final stage of Q school out at PGA West in California, 25 cars to the PGA Tour. The next 50 were full status in the Corn Ferry, and I was starting the last. Then it was 6 rounds. I was starting the 6th round way out of that. And I look back, I birdied like 4 of the last 5 holes. So I ended up right outside that 50. I was the number 1 conditional guy going the Corn Ferry. And that meant zero. It meant nothing to me at the time. And looking back, so that essentially got me the first couple starts. If I played badly, I probably wouldn't have got anything the rest of the year. But I finished 6th in the first event. So I played the whole year at the Corn Ferry. And I was kind of off and running through for the whole deal. And I was completely oblivious to that at the time. I had no idea that finish meant anything really. I thought, oh, I'm just out of it. We're kind of freewheeling it here, and away we go. Yeah. But then, so I played 3 years in the Corn Ferry, and it was in Charlotte River Run. That switched to the Corn Ferry finals at that time, replaced Q School, but I finished 3rd in one of those, which locked up my tour card for the first time. That was kind of that moment for me that, all right, we're going up to the big show here, the PGA Tour, and kind of made it. My background, I grew up at Fargo, North Dakota. There were probably, I don't know the number, 6 to 8 guys that played Division I golf that were 5 to 7 years older than I was, guys that I always looked up to, and a number of them made it to the Corn Ferry Tour, but none of them ever made it to the PGA Tour. So for me, I felt like I was kind of carrying it for the golf community in Fargo, making it out there. So it felt like a lot bigger deal than just me making it there.
Yeah. How did you get involved in the game early?
Yeah, so I would say I started kind of tagging along with my parents when they'd play, hit a shot here and there when I was really young. I had an older brother. And I always liked golf, but, there was this group of guys that were at Fargo Country Club where I grew up at. My older brother, some of his friends were out there, and I was the young guy of the group, but that was kind of the cool spot just to hang out and watch some of those older guys practice and play and tag along with them. And I was certainly fortunate that they let me kind of be included in that group. But I always look back on that, if I didn't have those guys, if the golf course wasn't the spot for the hangout, would I be in this? I don't know. And that's why I always tell everybody with kids is find a way to get their friends out there, because that makes it the spot that is, fun to hang out, fun to have chipping contests, putting contests, and just spend the whole day there.
How long is the golf season in Fargo, North Dakota? I mean, I feel like we're talking about this like Sweden,
Yeah. There's a lot of jokes that go with that. The serious answer, I would say it's middle of April-ish to middle of October, and it can vary a lot on both sides of that, but pretty short. But, for me, I grew up, I played just about every other sport, played basketball through my sophomore year of high school. So there's something to be said, to be able to put the clubs away and get away from it for a little bit. So when you do have that opportunity, you're all in on it.
Speaking of that, do you know the famous Bruce Litsky story about that? Bruce was a guy on
with
tour
the banana.
Forever. Yeah, with the banana. Yeah, I mean, like to that point, like for those that don't, I'm going to tell this story. But like, Bruce Litsky, his name was Leaky. He has this perfect little fade. He everyone thought he was going to win the '91 PGA, and that's when John Daly came out of nowhere and took it. But Bruce was like, "Well, season's over. I'm going to put my clubs away," and no one believed him. I think it was Payne Stewart that said that's not true. So he that can't be true. So he put a banana under his club head cover of his driver. And he's like, well, if he's really not going to, play for a few months, he won't know that this is here. And he didn't. And he got to get his clubs up, like 3 months later, and the stink was just unbelievable. So there is something to be said for sometimes, hey, we're going to take a little pause here. Like, how much does that help you at times when you're playing?
Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of it now in professional golf, and I'm amazed by those guys that are able to do that. I feel like I've got to kind of stay on top of things and keep those feels sharp. Play a couple times a week here throughout the winter just to keep it going. But I look back, when I was growing up, how great that was to play other sports, develop other skills, that complemented golf. you can learn a lot through other sports. And like I said, more than anything, when it came, March to April and you get a 45-degree day, you're out there in shorts and t-shirt and ready to get the clubs out and start swinging again. And it was a lot of fun to be out there.
Was there one person in particular that sort of was a mentor to you or said, hey, I think you can really be pretty good at this?
Not really. I never had those conversations, but I grew up working with John Dahl, who was a PGA pro there in the area, and I had great instruction, so that was certainly a big thing. And then, like I said, this other group of guys that all played college golf, Corn Ferry Golf ahead of me. I looked up to those guys so much and what they did, saw how they kind of went about things, practicing, playing all these events, and I'd say it sort of normalized things for me that. And I look back, I never really felt like I was that good because I was always trying to chase what those guys were doing and kind of keep looking up to that next level.
Well, I think anybody that's competitive is always trying to measure themselves against the guys they're playing with. And, we just had an episode we taped with Justin Thomas. And for a while he was like, oh, that's cute. That's Jordan Spieth's friend. And he's also playing golf. Isn't that nice? And he finally had a couple of breakthrough moments when the tour stops were in Hawaii, when he was like, hey, I can do this now. So when you finally get there, right? Because I've heard stories about your ball striking for years, and so when did you have the moment when you were there with the competitors that you said to yourself, I can do what these guys are doing?
Yeah, I still don't know if I have that at times. The way
that's
golf
the game. That's the game.
No, my rookie year on the PGA Tour, I struggled off the bat. But when we got in the middle of summer, June, July, August, I was playing pretty well there through the last part of the year, making a nice push to stay in that top 125 to keep my card. And it was at the Wyndham Championship. I actually have the picture up behind me here. I paired on Saturday with Tiger. We were tied
Tiger
for
Woods,
Saturday.
2015, yeah.
And, I certainly don't know if I should compare my game to his, but felt like, I felt like when I was playing my best that I could compete with those guys. And I've always had that inner belief that if I, take care of me and do what I should, that I can compete with anybody out there. And it was nice to have a little validation there. And, looking back, my game certainly needed a long ways to go to have the consistency and to be able to do it for the course of a season. But, that was nice to have that little stretch in there and play well and kind of get that belief that I could do this.
So that was the belief, and it sort of came to fruition at the win at Pebble Beach when I just mentioned Jordan. You sort of battled back Jordan Spieth for the win at Pebble. What did that do for you?
Yeah, it was an interesting win. I felt like backing up 2 weeks before I finished second out in Palm Springs.
Right.
I felt like I played a lot better that week, and on Sunday in particular, I felt like I played better than I did at Pebble. So, I had a lot of confidence going into Pebble Beach that I could do well, and it's a golf course that suits me well. But, it was funny because we played, I think I made a double bogey on the fifth hole and a bogey on 8 on Sunday at Pebble that year. And, usually that's way too many mistakes to make on a Sunday to have a chance to win. I looked up walking down 9, and I was only 2 back, and kind of right in that thing still. So I was excited for that and made a few putts finally coming down the stretch. It was big, but I would say more than anything, I built up winning on the PGA Tour to such a big deal, and it's almost a lonely feeling. The final putt goes in, you're the last person there getting the trophy, everything, doing all the obligations, and everybody's just gone onto the next week. So I think for me, and Scotty talked about that a little bit this year.
I was just about to say it. You sound exactly like what Scotty Scheffler said before the Open Championship.
Yeah, there's a little bit to it as a golfer, where you're used to getting your butt kicked every week out there. It seems like you're not used to winning. That you've got to, find satisfaction from other things versus results. And so, I played great. That's more. If I go out and play great and I finish 20th, I still feel like you've got to have that same satisfaction. Whether it's first, second, 20th, whatever it might be. So that's what I was more proud of. I was proud of the way that I handled that back 9. Internally, And I've always hated all these golf cliches of one shot at a time and all those stupid ones, but it really is looking back that you're right there in that moment, focused on the next shot, and that's when results seem to work out.
Well, Tom, I'm just focusing on one question at a time here on this podcast, and I'm just focusing on it to make sure
Exactly.
it all goes the same way. But to me, that's the beauty and just the ridiculousness of the game, right? Because you obviously are chasing something that you can hold on to for a little bit, but no one outside of Tiger holds on to it for a long stretch or Scotty at the moment.
Scotty's getting there, yeah.
He's getting there for a long stretch of time. And then when you get there, you're like, okay, I've got it now. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, but how long am I going to keep it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So why do we do this to ourselves? So I guess the question is, why do we do this to ourselves?
I was thinking about that when we were talking about Q-School a moment ago. The way I was describing, I was like, now, why the heck am I crazy enough to want to do this? But you know what? It's just a love for the game and there's nothing better than the competition of it. Last week I was playing in the Grant Thornton. Angel Yin was my partner down there.
Yep, saw that.
And I had a good buddy caddying for me, Tom Gillis, who played on tour for a number of years and played the Champions Tour. And, Angel and I were making a nice little run there in the back nine, making some birdies. And, it's all about that climb up the leaderboard. We ended up finishing 7th, but Tom and I were talking about it, just how fun that is to get in that atmosphere. You're hitting shots down the stretch, making a few birdies, trying to climb that leaderboard, and how much fun that gets and how much he was missing it, being out of competitive golf for a year.
Yeah, and then you just have to sort of surrender to it. That's the other thing about the game that drives me crazy is that you said, I was out there freewheeling. You have so much data these days and so much, spin rate, smash rate. What's my ball speed? What's my club speed? All this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think Hale Irwin said it best. We're not out there playing golf swing. We're playing golf, right? So you have to take all this data. And it's really helpful. It tells you what you need to do, and it tells you this and that. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is putting the frickin' ball in the hole. And sometimes I feel like these days we get so ensconced and flooded with information that we forget that the idea is to put the ball in the hole with the fewest number of strokes possible.
Yeah, no doubt. You see guys like Bryson that have really done well with the data, and I think it certainly has helped the learning curve for guys coming out at a younger age to be able to compete faster. But yeah, you said it well. I think for me especially the biggest thing is, when I'm confident and feel good about things, keep the doubt kind of out of your head of where's the next shot going to go and whatnot, that things go well. And that's more, I feel like that's more the challenge for me is just keeping that confidence up and keeping that belief up in myself.
So do you think the game is more about feel than anything else?
It's hard to say because certainly there is a technical aspect of it, that the consistency and whatnot is not going to be there if you're not sound technically. And it's interesting too now, with analytics and everything coming into the game, how guys will change their strategy based off what the data says. You should hit driver more often because the closer you get it, the better off you're going to be, stuff like that. But yeah, there still is this feel and competitive part of golf that, handling pressure and handling what you're thinking about, I think is certainly more important than all the rest of that.
Man, you're not kidding about it. Hey, guys, we'll get back to the interview here in just a minute, but we wanted to update you with something that we're doing here and tell you about a new venture we're launching here. Since we relaunched this channel in August, the growth has been absolutely incredible and the feedback has been wonderful, so thank you all for that. And what we've learned from that and what's been shown to us is that this community wants to be smarter about the things they consume, and a lot of you really like golf as much as I do. So with that, we have some really exciting news. We're launching a new golf-specific YouTube channel called Trey Wingo Golf. Now listen, that channel will let us go deeper and really engage in a very fun and interesting way about the game that drives us all crazy. Those 18 holes, you try and figure out how you can play 3 really well and then 3 like you're swinging a snow shovel instead of a driver. But we're going to go deep into that. Over there, we're going to get out on courses. We're going to have our Break 80 challenge. We're going to do a lot of travel. We're going to do a lot of equipment testing, all that kind of stuff. Nothing changes here on the Trey Wingo Straight Facts homie page. on YouTube. You'll still have great interviews and high-level football discussion, strategic football information to make you a smarter fan, and golf will stay right here as well. But if that's your kind of golf, make sure you go over to Trey Wingo Golf as well and subscribe to that channel where we're going to go really deep into the game and be out there on the course quite a bit going forward. All right, a lot for you to consume there. Just make sure you subscribe to both channels now. And now let's go back to the interview. Getting closer. But that boned me yesterday in my round. It was a short par 4 with this bunker that I cleared the last time I played it. Well, I'll clear it again. So of course I didn't. I fanned it out. It was right under the lip in this bunker. I had no shot to get it to the green, so I just swung as hard as I could. It went sideways out to the fairway. I ended up making a great bogey, but I probably would have made a par if I'd just taken a 5-wood or a freaking hybrid off the tee. You have to sometimes just. You have to think about it, but if you think about it too much, you can't swing almost.
Yeah, and that's where, hopefully all those decisions are made before the round, or you have a pretty good idea of what your game plan is going to be, so you're not having to make too many of those decisions on the fly. And, that's where, some of the anxiousness, nervousness can creep in, I feel like, is, trying to do something that you didn't prepare for.
Well, that's clearly my issue because I didn't think about that at all before I played. But I also know that you're pretty good at like picking a number, right? Like you feel like you know the number. If someone says you need to hit it 96 yards, you know exactly what club you need to hit and exactly how much you need to swing that club, right?
I feel like that's always been a good strength of mine is distance control, in your iron game, and that's always been my greatest strength is my iron play. Yeah, so, I play a lot of those games with wedges on TrackMan, so that is a nice part. That's what I really use it for is dialing in distance. So if I've got to land it on a certain number, I usually give myself 2 yards of variance is kind of the target I'm trying to hit it into. But, yeah, so there have been some fun games we've played with that, a few different times.
I saw that little bit you did with no laying up where they said 78 and you hit it 76 with a 60. And then the next one was they gave you 163 and you're like, that's kind of my stock 8. You hit it 162. I mean, is that sort of the way you sort of make the practice not feel like practice almost?
A little bit, yeah, for sure. I like, I get bored really fast in the driving range. I would say I generally like to play more golf on the golf course, go play versus just beat balls. But
oh my God,
when I am on the range,
you're speaking to the majority of us there, man.
Because, yeah.
Like I should probably do that more, but I can't be on the range for more than 10 or 15 minutes. Like, let's go do something.
Yeah, and I've found in my game that if I go out and spend 3, 4, whatever it might be, hours on the range, for an extended period of time, then I won't perform as well as if I'm on the golf course. So, and, even when I'm on the range, I get bored pretty fast. So I like to hit a lot of shots, high, low, draws, fades, and then play different games where I'm working on landing a specific yardage and just keep me a little more mentally engaged in the range when I am out there.
So how much would you say the tour has changed from when you first got your card to where it is now?
Well, it's changed in a lot of different ways. First of all, the distance thing has become such a big deal. And so I go back to 2012 when I was one of the young guys in the Corn Ferry Tour, 22 years old. That was almost an outlier. Nobody was out there that young. There were a lot of guys still kind of in their 40s hanging on until they got to the Champions Tour. Fast forward to now, I feel like everybody out there is, in their early 20s on the PGA Tour, and it's just young guys smashing it everywhere. So that I feel like that's certainly changed a lot, and it's only going to get younger, as distance becomes an even bigger thing here in golf. But and then you look at the changes the tour's made, to these signature events and that model, and it sounds like we've got a lot more down the road with shorter schedule, and who knows what else that all entails. But LIV's come along to change things big time there, but I feel like I know about as little as anybody in all of that because I've just tried to keep my head down and just keep playing. And if they keep giving me a tee time next year, I'm doing well.
Yeah, well, I mean that's sort of the thing. You have to just say, this is what's in front of me. But everybody thinks about it now because of what I've known Brian Rowlap for years with my association with the NFL and the things that he was number 2 behind Roger in the NFL front offices. And it looks like starting in 2027, the tour is going to be dramatically different. shorter schedule, maybe bigger breaks between that. What are your feelings on those things?
Yeah, I've thought about it a little bit. I would say, first of all, I'm a person that I don't necessarily like change. So I would say just change as a whole, I'm a little nervous about. And I'm also a guy, I probably play the most of anybody on the PGA Tour every year. So when you start talking shorter schedule, I get nervous. I think to me, the beauty of the tour is if a guy wants to, play 5 or 6 weeks in a row, he can do it. And if somebody else wants to take those same 5 or 6 weeks off and go on vacation or do whatever, they have every right to do so. I mean, I love the flexibility of the PGA Tour. I mean, I think that's one of the main draws, that kept guys with the tour versus going over to LIV. So to now say we're going to shorten this thing to 25 events and everybody's going to play every week or pretty much just to stay in the race, I don't know. I agree with that. But I will say I trust that Brian's a lot smarter than me and knows the marketplace a lot more for how to tweak golf and how to make it, a little bit better for everybody involved. So certainly got to trust that part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the one thing that Brian was a big part of with the NFL was finding a way to make people ravenous for the sport, right? Which is interesting because at the same time, when he was there and Roger is still there, they're pushing the idea of an 18-game schedule. And I think that's whether the players want it or not, the players union wants it or not, the fact that they've been talking about it so adamantly 8 years before or 5 or 6 years before the collective bargaining agreement is up, I think that's their way of saying this is going to happen. So on one hand, they're saying, hey, we're going to play more games. But on the other hand, what the NFL has done a really good job with, and I think this is what Brian is trying to do, is keep the sport of football relevant when it's not being played, which is why the NFL honors thing becomes a huge thing, which is why we do a show about what city gets a Super Bowl, why the draft has become a big thing. So and Brian also used the word he said, sometimes it's okay to miss the sport a little bit, which would mean we're going to have lapses instead of sort of going this year round. And they finally got rid of the crossover season from the end of one year to the beginning of the next. Where are you on the idea of there being, maybe a little more significant gaps in between we're seeing actual PGA Tour events?
Yeah, I would say I don't have real strong feelings on that either way. I don't know would be my first answer, but
that's an honest answer.
I do like to argue with people, so I'll take the contrarian side here for a moment. And I would say, first of all, like you said, what sport out there is trying to shrink their season, shrink their schedule? I don't understand that part of it. And part of me, just thinks about the golf fan. It certainly is a lot smaller fan base than the NFL has. And I feel like golf fans are a little bit different that, they love golf, for the meritocracy that comes with it, for the values of the game and everything. And golf fans are golf fans and, no different than I was the other night turning on, the skills challenge with Scotty and Rory out there. And those guys just love to see golf, whenever you can turn it on TV. And so I feel like if the PGA Tour isn't playing, somebody else is going to fill that week, and guys are still going to show up to play. So I still don't know that you're going to miss golf in that respect because something's always going to pop up. So I don't know. It certainly sounds like there's going to be big changes, and I would say I will just sit back and kind of watch and see how it plays out. My hope, and I feel like Brian is a stronger leader than we've had at the PGA Tour in a long time. I hope that he sees, down the road pretty well, because I feel like a lot of our past changes to the tour have been kind of knee-jerk reactions to LIV coming along and different things, and maybe not the best decision we've made, but that we had to do at the time. So hopefully this is, much more thought out.
Yeah. Now, look, we'll see. I mean, I think that the thing that Brian is the thing that I like most about what Brian has done is he's getting people involved. And Tiger's part of this competition committee, and there's been a competition committee for years in the NFL that come up with these rule changes. Some of them are insane. Some of them work for a year and then they move on from them. But the thing that I sort of take solace in is that I think it is his intent to grow the game as much as he possibly can. and we've mentioned LIV a couple of times in here, and obviously people have very strong opinions about LIV. I
Okay.
have my own feelings about it, and be perfectly honest, they asked me if I wanted to come work with it, and I just wasn't really interested in the product. But I think LIV forced the PGA Tour's hands in a lot of ways that might actually, in the long run, be very beneficial to what the PGA Tour becomes. What are your thoughts on how LIV has influenced the PGA Tour, either for good or bad?
Well, I would say, personally speaking, I'm probably the player that's benefited absolutely the most from Liv coming along. I played well in 2022, right before Liv got going, which brought an offer from Liv, so I went down that road for a little bit. But sticking with the PGA Tour and the changes they made, I've played in every signature event since they were established, and I would say nobody's benefited more financially than I have because I've played well in some of those events and been in all of them. So it's been fantastic for me. So I shouldn't be the guy here, complaining about any of that coming along. But it is tough for the game of golf that there's a lot of great players that are on LIV that we're not competing with against every week like we were, and kind of fractured the sport. And but I think there is an avenue to lean into that. That's some of that LIV versus PGA Tour rivalry would be great, and have a few more events with those guys and bring this thing back together.
When you hear someone like Brooks Koepka is reportedly considering returning, what was your reaction when you heard those things?
Yeah, I mean, I can see it. I think you can see for the top guys, who's real concerned with majors and legacy, like Brooks is. I mean, his comments are he gets up for these, majors. He's won 5 of them now. I would question we're playing less events on LIV, and playing some easier golf courses that they play. Does that get your game ready for the majors? And I'm sure that's on his mind that he hasn't performed the way he's wanted to over the last couple seasons since he's gone to LIV. So, I think that for those guys that everything's geared towards the majors now, that that would be a major concern. And I don't know where that all stands with contracts and whatnot and how he could come back. But, the other thing the tour's done with this equity plan that they've rolled out is they've made us players, equity owners of the tour, and would certainly like, these names to come back and enhance our products on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, it's I don't know if LIV's ever going away per se because it's an unlimited well of cash,
Exactly.
but they may have plenty of cash, but if guys like Brooks leave, how much cachet does that tour have?
Yeah, or you think about, I'm not saying they would ever do it, but you think about a guy like a Bryson or John Rahm or these big name guys, so much can change if one or two of those guys would decide to come back, or the other way, a couple more guys from the PGA Tour go to LIV. So, it's been a lot of change in the golf over the last few years. It's kind of seemed like it's slowed down a little bit. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Surprised there haven't been more signings here this winter. I thought there might have been a few more, as it seems like this merger thing sort of died. More guys might have jumped ship to LIV, but I think it speaks to a lot of the changes the tour's made that, we're all being compensated very well if you go out and play well on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, and it feels like to me that when LIV started, obviously bombshells: Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, big names were left, and then the PGA Tour was kind of reeling. And then I think this past year, 2025, was one of the best years I can remember on the PGA Tour. It sort of it was the first great season for me in the really post Tiger Woods competitive era. And I think that bolstered a lot of people's feelings. But hey, I think we're doing the right things here.
Yeah, it was a great year. And I don't know the TV side of things. I think ratings were up pretty significantly this year as well.
They were.
So things seem to be heading in the right direction. And like I said, I'm not too big at getting caught up into that. I know that I'm getting older here and just trying to hang on as long as I can and get a tee time.
Dude, you have no idea. Okay, come on. I mean, you got no idea about what getting older is like. But and I want to phrase this carefully and respectfully because, in politics, everyone always says, "Well, we got to take care of the middle class. The middle class is what makes America work." And it feels like there is some concern with fewer events and demanding everybody be there and all this kind of stuff that some of the middle of the PGA Tour might feel the squeeze more than anybody else. Is that one of your concerns?
Yeah, I think, going back to what I said earlier about how small these margins are and how many great players are out there, I just think that less opportunities, for, call it around the 100th spot, because that's what it is to keep your card now. Unbelievable golfers, unbelievable players that really, could just need an opportunity to go out and kind of show that and take their game to the next level. So I struggle with that part of these changes, especially being a guy that is probably going to be in that category fighting for your card, especially as I get a few years down the road here. But you know what? It's the tour certainly is more about the Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroys than it is guys like myself, and I understand that.
It is, but I think what makes the tour great is trying to find those next guys, right? Like the Ben
For
Griffin
sure.
story this year
Yep.
was like one of the things that, I mean, again, with Rory completing the career Grand Slam, Scotty Scheffler doing Scheffler things, Tommy Fleetwood finally breaking through,
Yep.
the Ben Griffin story. I think the thing that makes the PGA Tour great is you have these ascensions. You have these guys that come from the feeder system to this next level and can prove. And my concern as a fan is that, well, if we're just going to sort of, hey, here are the stars, where do the next stars come from?
Completely agree with you, Trey. And I think that, some of the best weeks on tour are when you get a star and, a no-name guy, so to speak, comes up and contends with them. And you kind of get that, underdog story, and everybody can relate to that.
So having won on tour, having kept your card for all these years, we all have goals, right? We all have aspirations. What's the in your mind or a bucket list that you've written down somewhere? What's the next thing that you would like to check off?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm a huge goal setter. I like to feel like I'm putting in the work and continue to get better. And if I look at my career, I feel like I've gotten a little bit better every year. And so I just like to keep that going. But starting off every year, it's about qualifying for all the majors. And I'm not in any of them here for this next year, so I know I've got to come out of the gates pretty strong here to try to make it to Augusta right off the bat. So that's my first focus here this year. And then I think the end goal is kind of always make it to East Lake in that top 30 for the Tour Championship. That signifies a great year for us. And it's funny, I've had a few of these years, the past few years, where you get off to a strong start and kind of taking care of some of those check marks early on for majors. I'm in a good spot for the FedEx Cup, and then it's always transitions to Ryder Cup or President's Cup, and I've been close for a few of those teams, and I think that for me, if I could make one of those teams, would be a great thing for my career.
Well, listen, I'd be all in on Tom Hoge making a Ryder Cup because it ain't working. We can't find a way to beat those guys. So I'm all for anything that would change that.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, I felt like the U.S. team was playing great heading into Bethpage this year, and it seemed like they just ran out of holes because they were playing well there on Sunday. Yeah. That was an awesome finish to it.
Yeah, I mean, look, Sunday was great, and it really, there were a couple of moments where like, oh my God, they might pull this thing off. And then obviously the Euros just did what they've been doing all weekend, make putts. So we'll see what happens there. When you're not playing golf and you're not dad or whatever, what do you like doing? What is your passion?
Well, there aren't many of those days. It seems like, especially as I'm getting older, there's more time in the gym, more time with physios and everything, trying to keep this body working. But I don't know. I'm a numbers guy, so I like, I like checking out the stock market a little bit, doing some research there on some companies, going to all the TCU games, doing that sort of stuff around town here in Fort Worth. It's always fun. So there's enough going on. Can stay busy here.
Perfect. Well, listen, don't be too busy with that stuff that don't take away from the game, because it's been fun to watch your ascension, and we'll see how these things play out. Maybe if you get off to a good start, we'll see you at Augusta this year.
Yeah, I hope to be there. That's a special place. But thank you for your time today. It's been fun coming on with you.
Tom, we appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
Yep, thank you.
So thanks once again to Tom for the time, and we'll see what happens with him as he tries to get into those majors this year, starting with a hot streak that could get him to Augusta for the Masters. Thanks for watching, and again, if you like what you see here, click the like and subscribe button, not only to Straight Facts Homie or my YouTube page, but also Trey Wingo Golf that YouTube page, which we've just launched. A lot of great, exciting stuff coming up there. We can't wait to share it with you. And we'll see you next time on another episode of Straight Facts Homie.